पाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर श्रील भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य विश्वपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर श्रील भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य विश्वपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर श्रील भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य विश्वपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य विश्व महाभागवत श्री गोक्षर बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्य विश्व श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य विश्व वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गोपाल वृंद की जय। नाम चैश्ल हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जय। श्री मुनि देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री कार्तिक व्रत की जय। व्रत पालनकरी भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री ऊर्ज व्रत की जय। ऊर्जेश्वरी श्रीमती विश्वभानुनंदिनी राधारानी की जय। श्री हरिनाम ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Okay, just sharing my screen. Shit. How come it's not coming up there? Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayanati Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhavo Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedus Tang Sarva Bhutta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridantasto yabhadrani vedunoti suritsatam. Nashta prayeshvabhadreshu nityang bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Tavaivasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam. Bhaksha vihina aparada lakshai kshiptashtakamadhitarangamadhe Kripa maitam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so little recap of what we read yesterday. So now, Brahma asked 4 questions to the Lord. And what were those 4 questions? They were, what are the forms of the Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? How are the different energies of the Lord working? How does the Lord play with his different energies? And how may Brahma be instructed to discharge the duty entrusted to him? So these are the 4 questions. And this last one specifically, he's asking also how he can do this duty of, making the creation, but not become puffed up and start to think that he's the creator. So I'm just going to read the translations for verse 31, 32, and 33, what we read yesterday. The personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities. Let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. All right, and this is the first of the 4 seed verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Catuh-sloki. We read this yesterday. I'm just going to, because these verses are so important, I'm just going to read the Sanskrit again. Aham eva samevagre nanyadyat sarasat param pascharaham yadetatcha yo vashishyeta somyaham. O Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who is existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Okay. I need to learn these verses. I've never learned them before. My Gurudev wrote a whole book on this, on these 4 verses. Rittertam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyaratmano mayam yata bhaso yata tama. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. I'll read that one more time. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya, or Maha Maya. Both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord, because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false but illusory. There's a difference between something being false and illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope, as it exists in the front of the illusion person, is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless, or that the Supreme Lord is formless, is also illusion. And the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord had all existed before, that they were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and that they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body, and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and the living entities are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord. And the same light is reflected in varieties of light: the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion and the false claim. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra in the very beginning affirms that everything is born from the Supreme, and thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord, and all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc., and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories and different speculations about the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul in the physiological body, and the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist even after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the physiological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of the cerebral lump were the machine of the functioning mind. But in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the function of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation are the bodily construction independent of the Supreme Lord, are different reflective intellectual gymnastics only. But at the end, they are all illusioned and nothing more. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization is but an action of the covering influence of the illusory energy. The illusory energy has two phases of existence, namely the covering influence and the throwing influence. By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entity into the darkness of ignorance. And by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of the men with a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person, who enlightened the supreme individual living being, Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed herein, and therefore such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 16, verses 18 to 20, that demoniac persons who deny the existence of the Lord are thrown more and more into the darkness of ignorance. And thus such demoniac persons transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sane man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who is personally instructed by the Lord, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who is let me reread that. The sane man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who is personally instructed by the Lord, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who is personally instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. He accepts this statement of the Lord, Aham sarvasva prabhavo matta sarva pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Bhagavad Gita 10:8. The Lord is the original source of all emanations, and everything that is created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, engaged in a transcendental loving service of the Lord. Although the reflectory energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane person knows clearly that the Lord can act, even from far, far beyond our vision, by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. In the medical science of the ancient sages, known as the Ayurveda, there is definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words. Jagaryoner anichasya chiranandaika pangsasti prakritir nitya pratichayeva bhasvata achetana pichaitanya yogena paramatmana akarod vishwamatkilam anityam natakakritam natatim. Okay. There is one Supreme Person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation, and whose energy acts as Prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living entity of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant person, therefore, may even be a scientist or a physiologist in the drama of Prakriti, while the sane person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. By such a conclusion, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita, it is clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, para Prakriti. Just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, apara Prakriti. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the fire and the heat. The fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. The simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that the fire and heat are the same. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly fire. Therefore, the living energy represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord, and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. This material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness, and the activities of the living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya, or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In darkness, no one can see things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things. But in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of the snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. According to the Padma Puran, within the material compass there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas and innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can be seen only by the indirect light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of the different energies of the Lord, or the personality of God himself, can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God, and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy, and this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. Wow, that was a long purport. Tomorrow is a super long purport. It's going to be Yata Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Chavacheshvanu pravrishtani apravrishanti tatateshu natesham. Let's see, how long is this purport? This is pretty long also, so we'll end after this purport. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Purport. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested. And at the same time, such elements are differently situated. And the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science. But the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos, and at the same time, he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha-loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in Brahma Samhita 537 as follows. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratidha pavitabis tavirya eva nijarupataya kalavi Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govindamari purusham aham bhajami. I will the personality of Godhead Govinda, who, by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss, enjoys in his own and expanded forms. Simultaneously, he enters into every atom of the creation. This explanation of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 535 as follows. I need to stand up. Oh, 1 second. Okay. So this expansion of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 535 as follows. Ekopya saura chaitum jagaranda kotem yat shaktirasti jagaranda chayaryaranta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who, by one of his plenary portions, enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus ultimately unlimitedly manifests his infinite energy all over the material creation. The impersonalists can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahma is thus all-pervading, and therefore they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of his transcendental knowledge. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead, and one who is surcharged with such transcendental love of Godhead can without difficulty see the personality of Godhead in every atom and every movable or immovable object. And at the same time, he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates, who are also expansions of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge, as stated by the Lord in the beginning. Sarahasyam tad angam cha. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed through the process recommended by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 538 as follows. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundara achintya guna sarupam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom the pure devotees with their eyes smeared with the ointment of the love of Godhead always observe within their hearts. This Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Sham Sundar with all transcendental qualities. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees because their eyes are anointed with love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord, and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly, the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures, or as performed in the Vaikuntha lokas, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Man, if only my heart was a television, then I would never watch another YouTube video again. I mean, a television of the kingdom of God. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. Yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narad. Muktim dadati karhi chit smayana bhakti yogam. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities, without deviation from the absolute touch. Thus, love of Godhead, developed in the heart of the devotee, is a great mystery. Brahmaji previously told Narad that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled, because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has any desire in his heart save and except transcendental service of the Lord.
It's 8 o'clock.
Oh my God. Sorry, guys. Where am I? Not only was I standing, but I've been tottering back and forth to stop myself from sleeping, but I'm still falling asleep. Brahmaji previously told Narad that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is Achyuta, similarly, all the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also Achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for a layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotishvapi Mahamune. Out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection and devotional service is the highest of all, and the most mysterious also, even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances. In the Bhagavad Gita 1864, The Lord therefore advised Arjuna about this bhakti yoga. Sarva guhya tamam puya shrinu me paramam vacha. Just hear from me again about the most confidential part of the instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. The same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narad in the following words. Idam bhagavatam nama yanme bhagavato ditam sangrahoyam vibhutinam tvam etad vipuli kuru. Brahmaji said to Narad, whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious Bhakti Yoga by a transcendental loving service to the Lord. What verse is that? That doesn't give a verse. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narad. Narad explained it to Vyas. It is to be noted here that the mystery of Bhakti Yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narad. Narad explained it to Vyas. Vyas explained it to Shukadeva Goswami. And that same knowledge is coming down in an unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. So tomorrow we will read the last verse of Catuh-sloki. Etavad eva jigyasyam tattva jigyasunatmana anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. All right. Na Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhavika Giri Dhari, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jo Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Jo Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Mahabhagavat Shila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitya Vishnu Mahabhagavat. Sai. I have to. Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shradha Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Radha Vrinda ki jai. Nama Chaichla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Kaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shnitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, Hari Bol, thank you for bearing with me. Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Shri Gurudev.